Men's Rugby World Cup is coming to Australia. It'll be big, bold and spectacular. With an expanded format of 24 teams, 52 matches and 7 incredible host cities, Australia 2027 is kicking off a new era for the global game. Expect thrilling rugby, a few innovations and a unique Aussie twist. Let's see how it all works. On the 3rd of December 2025, the Rugby World Cup draw will divide the 24 qualifier teams into 6 pools of 4. The World Rugby men's rankings at the end of the November internationals will be used to create 4 bands of 6 teams. Each band will then be drawn randomly into Pool A, B, C, D, E or F. Australia, as hosts of this 11th edition, will be placed in Pool A according to their band at the time of the draw. Over 3 rounds, every team will play their pool opponents. At the end of the pool phase, the top 2 teams in each pool will progress to the knockout stage. They will be joined by the 4 best 3rd place teams, which will be decided based on competition points and, in case of a tie, by points and tries difference. Now, and for the first time ever at a Rugby World Cup, we go into a round of 16. Winners of Pool A, B, C and D will play the 4 best thirds. Winners of Pool E and F will face the runners-up from Pool D and B. Meanwhile, runners-up in Pool A and C will battle second place teams from Pool E and F. Then it's all on the line through the quarterfinals, semi-finals and the ultimate showdown, the Rugby World Cup final, played on the 13th of November in Sydney, where the champions will lift the Webb Ellis Cup. For 6 unforgettable weeks, Rugby World Cup 2027 will take Australia by storm. A global celebration, a new era. This is rugby like never before.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Sports, and it is finally here. The Rugby World Cup draw will be starting in just over 20 minutes time, and it's going to be a big draw. A brand new format, more pools, more matches, potentially maybe more upsets. I don't know. I'm not convinced, but we have to wait and see. And it's going to be a very, very interesting day to come. And yeah, I'm just very curious to sort of see how this format all kind of falls apart. Because if you guys watched that video, I mean, we'll do it again because it is quite complicated. So I want to make sure everybody understands the format as we go into the draw. It is a little bit complicated, and there are definitely pools you want to be in. Those being Pool A, Pool E, and Pool F, because potentially you could avoid a band one side, a top sort of six ranked team side, up until the semi-finals if you get yourself into the right pool. And in that regard, it's a very different formation or format rather than what we have seen previously. So welcome to the stream. Welcome to the day. It's going to be a very big day. We've got press conferences coming up with reaction from all the different teams, you know, after the draw. The draw itself happening in about 20 odd minutes. And I want to ask a question here. Do you like the new format? Very, very simple. Do you like the new format for the Rugby World Cup? A simple yes or no. Let me know what you think. You know, is it the right format? Is it the right type of way of growing rugby, having more teams and the likes of that? You know, what are our thoughts of the format itself? Because I personally think that I don't really know what the best format is with regards to getting more teams in, you know, but we've gone and created these 6 groups. Now, 6 groups immediately causes lots of red flags in that, you know, it's going to be a problem because it just doesn't fit into playoffs easily. As soon as you got a non-sort of divisible by 4, basically generally kind of situation, you kind of then struggle to get into or even divisible by 8, you struggle to get into, you know, round of 16s, quarterfinals, and the likes of that. So that's where I think the issue sort of comes, in the fact that, you know, we've got to find a way of making it, of adding jeopardy, for example, and I'm not entirely sure we found the right way of doing it for in terms of having better group games. I personally worry that we are going to see too many, not dead rubbers necessarily, but games which aren't competitive. And I think that's probably the worry at the moment, is that there are going to be too many big, wins in the group stage where I don't think there are enough competitive games with potential for upsets, and maybe to a certain degree as well, there aren't going to be enough of even close games in the round of 16 in playoffs, and even in the quarterfinals to a certain degree. So I think, semifinals, by the time you get semifinals, you're generally always going to have relatively competitive games. But I think there's definitely easier ways of getting to the final and the semifinals, like that. And I think that's a bit of a worry, isn't it? Immediately off the bat, that's a bit of a worry with regards to the fact that there is potentially easier ways of getting to playoffs and the likes of that, and not equal ways. I think that's the big worry I think a lot of people have. It's that there aren't equal ways of getting to the quarterfinals and semifinals. So we'll go look at the format exactly, kind of look at the teams and stuff and the likes that we've got, and in a little bit, and kind of look at exactly where we are with that whole sort of situation. But Josh, we've got 17 odd minutes until the draw itself. And you still have time for you guys. Let me know if you like the format, if you don't like the format. If you have any questions on the format, let me know, and I can try and answer them best as I can. I've been spending a lot of time trying to understand it. It's not easy, to be honest, and we'll kind of look at exactly what is complicated about it, and kind of explain why you kind of want to be Pool E and Pool F in a little bit. And obviously we'll play you the video once again so you guys can completely understand how it all kind of works and how it sort of goes together. So with regards to the teams actually in the draw, this is where we're at. And I'll just try and make it a little bit. So yeah, those are the teams in the draw itself for this afternoon. Well, this morning, I suppose. And if you look over there, you can see there's 4 bands. So basically, these bands are done completely on the world rankings as it finished end of last weekend. So they've all been confirmed. Bang, those are the bands. And basically, kind of how it works is it's a case of no teams in the same band can be drawn together. So if you are in band A, for example, you can't be drawn with the same team in band 1. You can't be drawn the same team in the same band. So if you're New Zealand and South Africa, for example, both in band 1, you cannot be drawn in there. So the only thing that we do know, and we're actually going to allocate that right now, is that Australia will go into Pool A as the band 2C side. So that we can actually lock in inverted commas. So those are the band. Band 1 is South Africa, New Zealand, England, Ireland, France, Argentina. They will all be in different groups, much the same as band 2 will all be in different groups. Australia, Fiji, Scotland, Italy, Wales, Japan, all in different groups. You've then gone band 3, which is Georgia, Uruguay, Spain, USA, Chile, and Tonga. And then finally band 4, which is Samoa, Portugal, Romania, Hong Kong, Zimbabwe, and Canada. Now, in terms of how the draw is going to take place, they're going to start with band 4 and work their way up to sort of band 1, and that's kind of how they allocate. So the only thing right now that we know for certain, as mentioned, is that Australia will be in Pool A. So what we're going to be doing is when the draw actually happens, we're going to be putting them all in basically the order. So band 1 teams will go into slot number 1, and we'll be able to sort of build our sort of draw as we go. But before we get going, I want you to please smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well, and let's go to some of the questions. So Ruan says, I have a question. At the moment, there is a lot of noise regarding the scrum and the amount of penalties ESA get from it, but it's not a penalty if you go backwards, only if you collapse. Why the issue? So the reason that there's a conversation about that is basically it's a case of people are saying you shouldn't get yellow carded for it's just not being good enough compared to your opponent. And I think that's a bit of a slippery road, to be honest, because I think, it's easy to say, from a scrum perspective, well, this one's being dominated, why is he getting a yellow card for just not being good enough? But how often do you see a yellow card, for example, because a player has got a step back inside, or gone around them, for example, and it's cynical, and they've had to sort of ankle tab, or they've come through. So they're basically, it seems like the player's not been good enough in that regard as well to maybe get to the tackle in time, or be able to get into the right position in time because they might be slightly slower. But it's a lot less cut and dry. But I think we're definitely going to see a potential review of how the scrum penalties work and the likes of that. coming into it. So we're going to good morning, Matthew. Hope you're well. Nick says more rugby for everyone and no other team has the depth to enjoy it like the Springboks. Rustin says, what time do they start, mate? So as you can see on the timer there, so the draw officially starts at 11 o'clock. That is the draw time that we've been told. Whether the actual drawing starts at exactly 11 or we're going to be seeing, new packages and presenting the likes of that. You've got Dan Carter who's involved and quite a strong panel in fairness. So that is kind of the situation with regards to, from a timing perspective, it all starts over there. Matthew says, for me, it's just allowed after the pool games. It's too inconsistent. Some are much easier than others. XJ says, hey, mate, just seen your channel for the first time. Can I get an indication of who you're supporting? Any other thoughts? South African through and through. So Box is the agenda. And if you're those... if you're not new to the channel, you know exactly how passionate we get about our Bok agenda as well, our Bok agenda, so to say. K3S says, with 20 teams to the pools, could have been pretty competitive for second and even first spot, but now they're going to be very predictable. Will we be seeing the live stream also in the channel on your reaction? We will have the entire show on the channel. We can't do it live, but we will actually have the entire show up on the channel later, so you can watch it retrospectively. Nick says, World Rugby 15 format is like 7th format some years ago. Jacques saying, format is okay as it expands and grows participation and supporters. The round after the pools is the concern, as this could be either be a mismatch or two tier one nations eliminating one or the other. Matthew says, would love for us to have Australia first game of the tournament. Well, if we're drawn in the same pool as Australia, my guess is we would be the first game of the tournament, because they always try to have a bit of a blockbuster game in that first game of the tournament, and kind of sort of get things going quite nicely. So I'm gonna bring up the tournament bracket in just a second and kind of talk you through what the controversy is and why people are saying that they're a bit nervous, a bit worried about that part of the format. And there's it's worth. I think it's the concerns are valid, very, very valid, with regards to why there's potential problems here, and how we kind of alleviate these sort of problems and the likes of that. Because it does get a little bit complicated, and there's definitely, and we did our actual simulation yesterday, it kind of shows you where the possible issues are. Right, so this is the bracket for the playoffs. And basically, the reason that there's a sort of a lot of controversy about it is, if you look at it, you'll see that if you are a pool winner, so you'll see, for example, pool A and pool B winner go into the first bands there of the round of 16. And on the opposite side, if you go to the bottom there, which is kind of the opposite, kind of go diagonally usually when it comes to opposite, and pool C and pool D winner are over there. Now, over there, you can see in both those cases, they play a best third. So pool A winner will play a best third, pool B winner will play a best third, and pool C winner will play a best third, and pool D winner will play a best third. Okay, cool, happy days. However, then you've got pool E winner and pool F winner, the other two winners of the pool. So these are players these are teams who have topped their group. They play a runner-up. So immediately there's a disparity. Immediately, you've got some teams winning their group and playing a team that came second, and 4 of them playing a team that came third. And so if, for example, things happen exactly per the bands, and you have a situation where, your number one, your band 1 team finishes first, your band 2 team finishes second, and your band 3 team finishes third, then basically, you've got 1 versus 2, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, 1 versus 3. So you could, for example, play against Australia in the round of 16, where somebody else could play against Uruguay, despite finishing top of the group. So that's where there's the worry about the disparity. And the problem then becomes the way that they've then justified it. Similarly, for example, you can actually come runner-up. So you can come in second and not play against a team that came first in the other group. So you can see there, pool C runner-up plays pool F runner-up, and then pool A runner-up plays pool E runner-up. So all of a sudden, you've come second in your group, and you're still not going to play against a band 1, which could be South Africa, New Zealand, England, Ireland, France, Argentina, if they all top their groups. Now, the way they then kind of even it out is that they're basically saying, as a result of that, if you play, for example, a runner-up, if you're involved in a runner-up, your quarterfinal will be against likely a runner-up. Whereas if you play against a best third, your quarterfinal is likely to be against another team that finished first. So as you can see, the Pool A winner, Pool B winner will likely meet each other in the quarterfinals. So let's say South Africa top Pool A, New Zealand top Pool B. We might play against a Uruguay or a USA or a Spain in our round of 16, but our quarterfinals suddenly we're playing against the All Blacks. Whereas, for example, if we're in Pool E and we win it, we could play against a Fiji, maybe a Scotland, maybe an Italy. Best case scenario, you could play, for example, an Italy or a Japan in a round of 16 game, and your quarterfinal could be the winner of a Fiji versus Wales. And all of a sudden you avoid any kind of band one side or team that finished first up until the semi-final. And that is where people are worried about the format, is the fact that it's not equal once you get past the group stages. And depending on what your pool you're in versus, how you've actually gone in your group stages, that is actually what dictates it. So it is a bit of a muddy situation. I do think we'll see the issues with it when it comes to the World Cup itself. But yeah, that is why there's some, and I'll show you the video, and hopefully that maybe makes a bit more sense for the likes of it, and maybe you can kind of follow that a bit better than what I've explained, because it's not straightforward, and it's a very unique format. I don't think we've seen it in any sort of sport really. So it's going to be an interesting experiment, and I'm hoping that we're going to see a good World Cup. But I think that there's going to be issues with the format, and that's going to be really, really frustrating. But at the end of the day, you can't judge it until we've actually had it. I think that's sort of the big thing, is that you've got to understand, we've got to sort of see the format, see the tournament, and then kind of make our judgment on exactly where we're at. So Annette says, agree regarding the scrum. Otherwise, we take the back line from past weekend, Adam, JC Creel, and Henko van Wyk, and then we have a scrum with power, speed, and height. And Matthew says, that's my worry about the new format. Ruan says, feel like this was done to get Ireland in a semi-final. Well, in fairness, they could play against a South Africa All Blacks, like they could still play it against the quarterfinal in format. Johnny reckons it's a crap format. Johnny says, spoiled for choice with how many rugby YouTuber live streams you could watch there. I had to go with my boy Stevie P, though. I appreciate you to hear. That's what I like to hear. Some brand loyalty out here with the lads, and I'm seeing a lot of the usuals in and around you. It's funny how all of a sudden everybody that gets to a World Cup stream, now everybody knows how to live stream, But yeah, we're just out here. We spent a lot of time working on our on the software and things like that, so we can try and make it the best possible experience. And that's why I'll be able to show you exactly what's happening as and when it does happen. And all I'm just hoping is that we have a very interesting draw, and that there's a bit of controversy maybe as well within the draw itself. So yeah, we will show you again the sort of the video that shows it. But yeah, in terms of the draw itself, Australia's obviously pre-draw, and that's in Pool A. That kind of always happens. And same thing, for example, France was obviously in Pool A in the last World Cup, and they played against New Zealand in the first test. So the fixtures officially come out in, I think, about February. And that's when we'll get to the final confirmation. But I think that you've got a pretty good bet that we will know our first fixture of the tournament after today, because it's likely, unless maybe there's like a Fiji, for example, in Pool A, we'll probably see Australia versus whatever the band one side is. Australia versus an Ireland, an Argentina, a box, New Zealand, and the likes of that. I mean, if New Zealand are in that, then they'll definitely go with that. If Fiji, not Fiji, like a Tonga, for example, where you could almost create a bit of a Pacific sort of rivalry and the likes of that. But so I think that we'll kind of know, get an idea of what our first fixture could be, and then after that we'll have to wait till February for the official fixtures. So it's gonna be a fun draw to have. And with regards to which groups you want to be, I personally think that you really want to be in Pool E and F. You want to be playing against those runner-ups, because I don't think that there's that much space for upsets. I think if you look at the draws there and the bands and the likes of that, I think that I don't think it's that likely that any of those band 2 sides are going to top their group. Maybe Australia drawing Argentina. Argentina aren't as good as they are, and they could kind of go up there. But to be fair, I don't think you'd mind playing either of those 2 sides in the runner-up situation. So you want to be in Pool E and F, as far as I'm concerned. That's, I think, the where it's the easiest possible for them. But before we get to the actual draw itself, which, supposedly starts in about 5 minutes, whether it will start exactly in 5 minutes or whether it's going to be a case of lots of random crap stuff before they actually get drawing, we'll have to wait and see. But then we will have coverage of all the different coaches' reactions. Rassie Erasmus giving his reaction tomorrow, but we will have the likes of Andy Farrell today. We will have reactions coming from, I assume it's going to be Joe Schmidt from Australia. It really shouldn't be, but it could well be, given the fact that there's, I don't think they're going to get Les Kiss in front of it. But maybe they should, to be honest. They probably should. It makes more sense as he's going to be the World Cup coach. Whether that has been confirmed, we'll have to wait and see who's actually. But we will have press conferences from all the different teams, including from Zimbabwe, for example, the Sables, our neighbors, who are actually going to be reaching out and maybe trying to do a bit of things with them for the World Cup and the likes of that. I just want to see a couple of big of upsets. I'd love to see, I'd love to see a situation where we see like a Zimbabwe going and pulling off a phenomenal win against even like a Spain, for example, or Uruguay, or a Chile, or USA. Would be really, really cool to see. It's so cool to see the fact that Zim is back in the World Cup. Now we need to see a bit of upset from them. Now we need to see a really, really big game. And it says, Steve Gott, congratulations on your Lions. Made some money on taking a blind chance. Then, for me, it's a safe bet. Always got to back the lads. So, yeah, I'm very chuffed with that, though. I think that could have been, I always thought we had a chance, but what a result that was. Matt says, there is a world where all the Pacific Islands are on one group. It can happen. We could have New Zealand, Australia, Tonga, as well as Samoa, all in Pool A. That could literally happen. If it does happen, maybe a bit dodginess with regards to the draw itself, and maybe a bit of... we have to do a little bit of introspection onto exactly what's happening there. But Josh, to maybe better explain the draw, I'm going to play you the video again that World Rugby has provided us, and maybe it makes a bit more sense. And when we come back, hopefully we'll be going into the draw itself.
Men's Rugby World Cup is coming to Australia. It'll be big, bold, and spectacular. With an expanded format of 24 teams, 52 matches, and 7 incredible host cities, Australia 2027 is kicking off a new era for the global game. Expect thrilling rugby, a few innovations, and a unique Aussie twist. Let's see how it all works. On the 3rd of December 2025, the Rugby World Cup draw will divide the 24 qualifier teams into 6 pools of 4. The World Rugby men's rankings at the end of the November internationals will be used to create 4 bands of 6 teams. Each band will then be drawn randomly into Pool A, B, C, D, E, or F. Australia, as hosts of this 11th edition, will be placed in Pool A according to their band at the time of the draw. Over 3 rounds, every team will play their pool opponents. At the end of the pool phase, the top 2 teams in each pool will progress to the knockout stage. They will be joined by the 4 best 3rd place teams, which will be decided based on competition points and, in case of a tie, by points and tries difference. Now, and for the first time ever at a Rugby World Cup, we go into a round of 16. Winners of Pool A, B, C, and D will play the 4 best thirds. Winners of Pool E and F will face the runners-up from Pool D and B. Meanwhile, runners-up in Pool A and C will battle second-place teams from Pool E and F. Then it's all on the line through the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and the ultimate showdown, the Rugby World Cup final, played on the 13th of November in Sydney, where the champions will lift the Webb Ellis Cup. For 6 unforgettable weeks, Rugby World Cup 2027 will take Australia by storm. A global celebration, a new era. This is rugby like never before.
Right, so that is the format. Hopefully that all makes sense, and we still haven't got much movement coming from the draw that's actually taking place. So let's wait and see. But get your predictions in, people, and let me know what you think of the format. As mentioned, yeah, just a simple yes or no. What do we think? Do we like it? Yay or nay? Annette says, I don't think we should have easy T. You should have pull of depth again because we prove our depth and worth. Christian says, thanks for all the effort, Fair Sports team. Anytime, absolutely anytime. And a bit of a campaign being released yesterday by Australia. They're going all out is the chat. And I don't know what that means just yet. But well, hopefully it means that we're going to see a very good World Cup. I'm hoping to get to the World Cup, actually. So, yeah, we actually put out a bit of a goal. We're trying to be to try and actually get ourselves to the World Cup. So, and your guys' support always helps us get there because it's going to be a very expensive trip. But hopefully we'll be able to get there and give you guys the access we did last time, because we're the only channel that was actually doing, you know, press conferences and the likes of that. And so hopefully we can get across there once again. But Australia, not a cheap place to go. So we've got a bit of panel here. Dan Carter's over there. And we've got Alicia Lucas, Tim Horan, who won 2 World Cups. And it's a bit of an anticlimactic. I mean, we had a whole massive studio and a whole event for the 2023 World Cup, unless they're going to move on to that. But at the moment, yeah, not particularly impressive with in terms of the. I mean, it's just a normal studio. So I'm hoping that this is not where the actual draw is taking place. Surely there's some big, you know, fancy event. I can't wait for that draw in South Africa in 2095. Because that's probably the best chance we've had of bloody hosting a World Cup at the moment. In fact, I actually see that they've just launched the process of selecting the host cities for the 2031 Rugby World Cup. And I mean, my guess will be in LA, a Chicago, a Washington. I imagine they'll have games in New York as well. Be interesting to sort of see outside of those, which I'm not entirely sure what the rugby big regions are over there. I know that Seattle, for example, have a team. I don't know. I think Miami's. I think it was more East Coast. I think I want to say, or West Coast. One of the two is more rugby dominant if you look at the states themselves. But yeah, so about 61% of people saying that they actually like the format, and fair enough. I mean, I'm not convinced about it, but again, I think you'll only know until when we actually get to the draw, or until we get the tournament itself, whether it was a good or it was a bad draw or format. I have a lot of doubts about the whole thing, but yeah, you never know. You never know is the big thing, and yeah, I think it's going to be one of those situations where it's. I just worry that we've been so quick to try and add more teams that we've added teams that aren't good enough to be there, and I think that kind of is the problem, is the fact that we've added these teams without really looking at whether they're strong enough to be involved there. It's cool to have more teams, but the problem is you can't just add teams and expect that to then create a situation where you're suddenly competitive. You know, it just doesn't quite work like that, unfortunately. I mean, it would be a nice concept if it could, but it just doesn't. And that, I think, continues to be the biggest problem of the entire thing. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how it sort of goes. But that is my main worry, and I think there's going to be too many blowout games. That's probably the big problem. So at the moment, still not much happening from a draw perspective. We wait to find out exactly when we're actually going to see drawing. I think my guess would be about quarter past was when we will start to see literal names being drawn out of a hat and the likes of that. It's always like to create a bit of hype, chat about different teams, chat about the World Cup and how it's going to be so amazing and the best World Cup, etc., etc., etc. You know, so that's all these dreams basically about it all. And then we kind of wait to sort of see, and it all kind of fizzles out maybe. I do think they're going to be some blowouts, and if they don't be very careful, that will start to call question marks over the worth of the World Cup, especially now going to America 2031 as well. But maybe I'm going to be pleasantly surprised. You never know. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I still have my doubts about the situation, but we'll never know until we get to the actual draw itself. I mean, the tournament itself. In terms of teams I'd like to, I mean, for me, I think the easiest sort of draw you could have is probably right now. Right now, if it was happening tomorrow, I'd say Wales, potentially Chile or Tonga. Tonga is not. I'd probably prefer Chile. I'd say Wales, Chile, some Canada would be the best, or Hong Kong would be the draw that I'd most like. I think that's the draw that would make me the most comfortable from a Springbok fan point of view. Whether that is actually going to be the easiest draw, who knows? We don't know what the teams are going to look like in a few years' time. That's obviously going to be a big part of it. But in terms of not having to worry about having two physical sides, for example, playing, you know, a Tonga is a big physical side. You want to avoid that. You want to avoid a Samoa, even if they were the last team to get into the World Cup, for example. They're not the lowest ranked team. And again, they're a physical side. So that was always a bit of a worry. You know, you always have to sit there and say, well, we don't want injuries in the group stages. So you want to kind of avoid your Tongas and the likes of that. So who would you like to face? That's what I'm asking now. Who would your ideal team to face be? You know, if you could choose any of these teams to face, what would your choice be? You know, who would you sort of go after and the likes of that? What would your and who would be the group of death? You know, your group of death is probably Australia, Georgia, Samoa. That's your group of death, inverted commas. And the fact that that's a group of death right now, you know, given the fact that two people go through automatically, and you also have the opportunity to go through the best place third, means you're not really panicking. Obviously, it means that if you drop a game, it suddenly becomes more difficult, but it doesn't necessarily become much more difficult depending on the pool you're in, because you could be a box, for example, and get drawn into or lose a game maybe and finish second, but you could be then drawn into, depending on the pool you're in, you could then go in from a brackets point of view, you could be going into a situation where you're playing another team that finished second, and then maybe facing a team that finished first in the quarterfinals. So even by then, I don't think it's going to be much harder. At the end of the day, I think regardless of the group we get, we will have, in theory, an easier way to at least the quarters or semis, probably an easier way even to the final than what we had in 2023, where we had the genuine group of death and the likes of it. So I think that is a very big point about this whole thing. Is I think that from a Bok perspective, we had the group of death last time. We had the hardest way of getting to the final, and we still managed to do it. So that's the big and to be honest, I think we're better now than we were back then. So that is our sort of saving grace. And yeah. Now I'm just going to move to a different scene very quickly. Just need to make sure it obviously does work. So give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to quickly change. Going to remove that for now. That's going to come on very shortly. And so we'll sort of split this. So yeah, again, what I was asking you over here is if you look at those bands, what do you think the ideal draw is? Where do you see it happening? Where, if you had to pick your preferred draw, what would it be? What would it look like? I know what mine is. I've told you what my ideal draw would be, and what my ideal draw that I don't want to happen is. What is your ideal draw? Where are you sitting with that? I'm just going to sort out and then make sure we have our pools on screen so we can show you guys all what's cooking. And I'm going to try and actually bring the draw in itself. Because we are moving to more ad breaks. So still no draw yet. I'm still waiting on... Sorry, I'm not quite sure what happened there. Still waiting on the draw to actually be to start. So the only team we've been able to allocate so far is Australia, who are the hosts, and therefore they are automatically into Pool A. Everything else we're still waiting to finalize. And I think the big thing for me is if we get into a difficult pool, for example, how do we then rotate? And I think, you know, the big thing people worry about, you know, depth, the likes of that, and us having the depth. The big thing for me is not so much worrying about the depth so much, but it's a case of, I don't know, it's almost kind of like you need to make sure that you don't injure your players, but at the same time, you want to make sure that your players are are up to scratch, you know, and that they've played enough rugby and enough high enough level. I think that's kind of becomes almost my worry, is that we might not have been playing at a high enough standard for us to be able to compete and be able to be at the top when we then need to, you know, because that becomes a really, really big potential problem, is the fact that if we don't perform it and we don't get tested enough, then all of a sudden we go into a situation where we're maybe not playing at a good enough standard, and then we might not be able to sort of compete and cope. So that kind of becomes my sort of worry. But I think at the end of the day, if you want to beat the best, you have to be the best. But it's going to be a very interesting balancing act of continuously playing players, keeping them at their best, protecting players, making sure they're fresh, and making sure they're at the right sort of standard. And because it's a new format, it's going to be a very tricky scenario to get it right. So we should be having the draw actually starting in the next few minutes. I'm going to show you guys the video one more time. I know some of you guys have watched it, but I just want to make sure everybody kind of understands what the concept is. And then when we get back, we hopefully will actually have some teams being drawn. So then once again, this is the format, and after that, we'll get into the actual draw itself. Hope to start adding some names next to some pools and see exactly what this is going to look like.
Men's Rugby World Cup is coming to Australia. It'll be big, bold and spectacular. With an expanded format of 24 teams, 52 matches and 7 incredible host cities, Australia 2027 is kicking off a new era for the global game. Expect thrilling rugby, a few innovations and a unique Aussie twist. Let's see how it all works. On the 3rd of December 2025, the Rugby World Cup draw will divide the 24 qualifier teams.
Right, sorry to interrupt. They seem to be upping the ante over here. So we actually have a draw starting, which is good to see. So here we go, people. Got a couple of World Cup stars there. Dan Carter's got a little ball ahead of him. We've got James Slipper who's involved.
Dan Carter, we've allowed him in the studio to help with this as well. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us. Brett, we'll start with you. Just tell us how big an event this will be. Rugby World Cup 2027 back in Australia.
Oh, look, Morgs, as World Rugby chair, I couldn't be more excited. As Alicia
Brett Robertson, who's the World Rugby chairman, not necessarily the big boss, but is the World Rugby chairman. So yeah, we just got to swap to a different side. So there we go. So all our pools on the left hand side: Pool A, B, C, D, E, F.
over 6 weeks, 52 matches, a round of 16. World.
And we will update that as we go. In fact, I've actually might have a bit of an issue here, so we'll pull into this angle over here. But so that's the draw itself. As you can see, the teams at the bottom over there. I want to make sure you other guys actually see the draw. They don't have to worry too much about that. So we have to wait and see exactly what the format is. And they've all got a little ball ahead of them. So they've each got a band. So from the looks of it, I think it'll probably, my guess, and we actually haven't been officially told exactly what's happening, is we will see a case of could probably go in pool A, B, C, D, E, F, and then putting it in for each, and then just doing the pots as we kind of go. So let's talk, people. I always can't stand these situations because all we want to do is see the draw, people. We just need a draw. We don't need to hear about, your experience. We don't need to hear about, oh, yeah, I think this team's going to be good. I think that team's going to be good. We just want to see the actual physical draw. That is it. It's not difficult. We just want to see the draw. We don't need a huge sort of, oh, yeah, this, that. And I always feel that sometimes they just really drag these sort of things on unnecessarily, if you ask me. So I'd like just to get going so we can actually start allocating teams into a pool, and then we can start breaking this down. Because for me, that's my problem, is that we don't care until we've got the draw. Once we've got the draw, then we can chat about all of this and the likes of that. But until we get the draw, this is all just speculation. And we don't want to speculate. We want to see what's actually going on. So let's chat more draw. So we can allocate these teams and get an idea of exactly where we're at. But now we have to listen to Dan Carter because, we've got no idea what Dan Carter's had to say over the last few years and what it means to win the World Cup. This is why I like the Champions League draw. If you ever watched football, the Champions League draw is the best way to go about it. It is so much better. They are so much quicker. It is on. They go straight into it. They draw within like 20 minutes, basically. Reset, do the next one, and off we go. We're now 20 minutes in, and we still haven't got a single team drawn. So we actually have time a little bit now to show us what the format's going to look like. So let's have another look, shall we? Thought we were actually going to draw.
Men's Rugby World Cup is coming to Australia. It'll be big, bold and spectacular. With an expanded format of 24 teams, 52 matches and 7 incredible host cities, Australia 2027 is kicking off a new era for the global game. Expect thrilling rugby, a few innovations and a unique Aussie twist. Let's see how it all works. On the 3rd of December 2025, the Rugby World Cup draw will divide the 24 qualifier teams into 6 pools of 4. The World Rugby men's rankings at the end of the November internationals will be used to create 4 bands of 6 teams. Each band will then be drawn randomly into Pool A, B, C, D, E, or F. Australia, as hosts of this 11th edition, will be placed in Pool A according to their band at the time of the draw. Over 3 rounds, every team will play their pool opponents. At the end of the pool phase, the top 2 teams in each pool will progress to the knockout stage. They will be joined by the 4 best 3rd place teams, which will be decided based on competition points and, in case of a tie, by points and tries difference. Now, and for the first time ever at a Rugby World Cup, we go into a round of 16. Winners of Pool A, B, C and D will play the 4 best thirds. Winners of Pool E and F will face the runners-up from Pool D and B. Meanwhile, runners-up in Pool A and C will battle second-place teams from Pool E and F. Then it's all on the line through the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and the ultimate showdown, the Rugby World Cup final, played on the 13th of November in Sydney, where the champions will lift the Webb Ellis Cup. For 6 unforgettable weeks, Rugby World Cup 2027 will take Australia by storm. A global celebration, a new era. This is rugby like never before.
Right, and we are finally ready to draw some names here, people. Go through the rankings over there. South Africa on the number 1 spot, as it should be, and hopefully we'll be able to live up to that rank, because we're going to go into the tournament in the number 1 ranked spot. Now we need to make sure that during the tournament we continue that kind of form and hopefully lift the damn trophy. That is the big thing that we need to make sure happens, and we need to wait to find out exactly who we're going to face, people. So let's get some drawing. Mark saying, come on, champions, Blocker, for the exclusive hat-trick of wins. Well, that is the thing. It would be a hat-trick, first ever, if we were to go back to back, do the three-peat. Now, so we've already been placed Australia in Pool A, so that's the big thing over there. So James Slipper holding out, I assume that's a ball that says Australia. Yes, it is a ball that says Australia. So that's already gone to Pool A. That's why you can see on the screen over there, Pool A has already been allocated. Right, here we go. Finally gonna get some draw of people. Here we go. And we're going to go to band 4, by the way, in case you missed it. Band 4 is going to be the first one to draw. So Dan Carter is going to be drawing our first few balls, so to speak. Right, so my understanding is that this is going to be Pool. Right, so Zimbabwe. And they're going to go to Pool F. Right, so we're going for Pool F. So Zimbabwe going to Pool F. Looks like we're going to be dragging Pool F to E. Right, now we've got Samoa. And they're going to go into Pool E. And had to beat Belgium, by the way, to qualify for the World Cup itself. So it wasn't an easy one for them. Now going into Pool D is Portugal. Very famously beat Fiji in the last World Cup. What a result that was. Such a cool team, Portugal. And, you know, moments like that is what we really like about World Cups. And hopefully we're going to see some more upsets like that. Right, we've then got Canada. And they're going to go into Pool C. As we again draw to the end of band 4. And now we've got Romania. So Romania will then go into Pool B. Again, still far too early to be worrying about which pool we want to kind of be in. And then as a result, Hong Kong, China go into Pool A. Right, so Australia and Hong Kong are the only pools that we can kind of see more than one team at the moment. They're in Pool A. Now we're going to move on to Band 2. And this is where things start to get a little... I mean, it's interesting. I mean, for example, if you're a Zim coach right now, you're watching this draw and you're like, ooh, what's going to happen? Who are we going to see in the likes of that? And Tonga is going to go into Pool F. So that's a big draw for them, for example. Right, USA on the next ones to come up. So USA and Samoa into Pool E. Then we've got Uruguay. They go into Pool D. So immediately I'm looking at Pool E, Pool F actually. I mean Tonga and Zimbabwe. I wouldn't mind having that at all. Right, next we've got Spain. Georgia. So Georgia and Romania. And then finally, we can get a bit of a Pool A 3 out of 4 being done here. And the final team going over there is Chile. You go into Pool A. This is now where things start to get a bit more exciting. Right, so now we're going into the top 2 bands. Now we really start to see how this goes. And again, as mentioned, we'll now kind of understand exactly once we... I still think that Pool F is probably where we want to be at. Wales, I'll tell you what, that Pool F is looking better and better to be in, if you ask me. Right, Wales, Tonga, give me there. Give me there. And Japan, I tell you what, even there, it's not bad. Because remember that Pool E and F, if you play against, if you draw in Pool E and F, you play against a second place team, but then you get play in another second place team, and you will avoid Scotland at this rate. So Scotland then going into Pool D. Fiji now to Pool C. Italy into Pool B. I still think Pool F. That's where we want to be. Pool F. Sign me up. Pool F. And England going into Pool F. Bugger! Of course England get an easy draw. Of course England get an easy draw. Once again, they're going to sneak themselves into a semi-final. Come on, give me South Africa. France. Ah, oh, disaster. Disaster, disaster, disaster. Right, now Ireland. As we start to get these, Ireland, Scotland, Uruguay, Portugal. Not an interesting group over there. Argentina. So then the big question is, are we going to be with Australia? Or, I mean, I'll tell you what, Italy, Georgia, Romania, thank you very much. I'll take that and run. But I think if New Zealand are in Pool A, it's rigged. What did I say? What did I say? Right, we have officially been pulled into Pool B, people. Italy, Georgia, Romania. That is where we stand, and we'll go through exactly what our tournament bracket then looked like with that. And, of course, who would have thought? I mean, what are the chances of New Zealand and Australia being drawn in the same group in a World Cup? Who would have thought? Who would have guessed that? That New Zealand and Australia in the same group so that we could have an opening fixture of New Zealand taking on Australia. What are the chances? What are the chances? Who would have thought? Not me. not me. Right, people, here we go. We have a draw. And it is an interesting draw. So let me know what your thoughts are. I'm going to put a poll out and ask what you guys think. Which are you happy with the Springbok draw? To answer the question, Matthew, yes, I will be doing another simulation. We're doing it this afternoon. And we'll go to that. But let's get into it, shall we? So right, here we go. Okay, so we finally have a full draw for the Rugby World Cup in 2027, and we probably also have a confirmed first game. New Zealand taking on Australia will be my guess for the first game after having been drawn in that. Who would have guessed it? Who would have thought? Everybody spoke about the fact that that would potentially be a very likely draw, and it has happened. New Zealand against Australia in Pool A. They will be joined by Chile and Hong Kong. South African fans, keep an eye out for Pool B, because that is where we have been drawn with Italy, Georgia, and Romania. It's not a terrible pool. It's one of the harder ones, I reckon, to be honest. I think that... obviously we don't quite know where Italy's going to be in the next World Cup. Rassi Erasmus says that they're a team on the rise and they expect them to be very tough. Georgia are a team that we know are physical, but have kind of sometimes, been a bit up and down with regards to sort of the consistency of performances. They've definitely been building the last few years, but maybe haven't been able to completely kick on to the extent where they've been able to sort of push for Six Nations spots, but they could yet be quite a tricky fixture. Romania should in theory be fairly straightforward, but again, you never know. You're all sort of guessing when it comes to these. Pool C is Argentina, Fiji, Spain, and Canada. It could be this could be one of the ones where maybe if Argentina aren't quite at their best, Fiji might be able to cause a bit of an upset. Argentina are the lowest ranked side were the lowest ranked side in Band 1. So that could be one of the pools where maybe there's a spot up for grabs. And Pool D, Ireland, Scotland, Uruguay, Portugal, it should be pretty straightforward. I mean, I don't really see how that... Maybe Portugal being Uruguay is the potential upset there. I don't see a Portugal or Uruguay beating Scotland. And maybe I'm very wrong. Maybe it could potentially happen, but I just don't really see it. And Pool E will then be France, Japan, USA, Samoa. Pretty straightforward, if you ask me, from a draw point of view. I think that... I think that it should be relatively comfortable. I think that we should be able to... I think that France will be pretty straightforward from there. Maybe if Samoa can get themselves sorted in the next 2 years, they could be a potential upset against Japan. And then Pool F, for me, the easiest group by quite a long mile: England, Wales, Tonga, Zimbabwe. Unless Wales really up the ante in the next couple of years, I don't see that being particularly difficult. So those are the pools that have been drawn. The big question now is kind of what it looks like with regards to the bracket. So and kind of what this means from a South African perspective. So let's go look at the bracket, shall we? And kind of see what the likely sort of quarterfinals, semifinals are. So the big problem with us is that we are now likely to play against New Zealand or Australia in the quarterfinals. So we've gotten a very difficult path, because we are hopefully going to be the Pool B winners, ideally, and we'll play the winners of Pool A and whoever wins in Pool C. So we do get a very straightforward round of 16, but in Australia or New Zealand likely hold for us in quarterfinals. Then from the semifinals point of view, if you look at Pool E winner, Pool E being France, potentially France or Japan, that could potentially be the semifinal, or else it would be a runner-up of Pool C, which could be a Fiji, for example. Pool F runner-up, which could be a Wales, or a Pool D runner-up, which could be a Scotland. So you're looking at Scotland, Wales, France, Fiji, potentially in the semifinals. But at this stage, we could have New Zealand in the quarterfinals, we could have France in the semifinals, and then a final against an England or the likes of that. So it's not a particularly easy route for either Australia, New Zealand, or South Africa. If you look at, for example, England, they're in Pool F, and they'll play the run-up of Pool B, so let's call it Italy. So that becomes maybe an interesting game. So a tougher game for England, for example. However, they will play the runner of Pool A, which could be Australia, and the runner of Pool E, which could be like a Japan in things. So they, for example, could play against a Italy, then a Japan, Pool E, and Pool F is no Pool A right now, or in Italy, for example, in the quarterfinals, and only meet a band one side in the forms of probably likely an Ireland in the semi-finals. Ireland, for example, will likely play against your Pool C winner in the so that you'd like to play against, for example, Argentina in the quarterfinals or Fiji in the quarterfinals, and then potentially England in the semi-finals. So everybody spoke about the fact that maybe this will be the final, the way that Ireland can get a potential quarterfinal. Well, it's set up in a way that they definitely could, because that's how this whole sort of situation stands at the moment with regards to kind of the bracket and the likes of that. So it's not an easy path. It is going to be a tricky path for the Boks. Because whilst maybe our round of 16 should be relatively straightforward, when you think it's going to be the Pool DEF best third. So you're now looking at Pool DEF. So you're looking at best third. At this stage, you're looking at Uruguay, USA, or Tonga. That could potentially be our round of 16 game, which, in all honesty, is another pool game. But then come quarterfinals, Australia or New Zealand likely to be our opponents there. Semi-finals likely to be France, and then final likely to be an Ireland or an England or an Argentina, or a who am I missing? Or those are kind of your big names. Ireland. We'll meet France in semi-finals. England, Ireland, Argentina. That's another side of the bracket. Assuming this all goes kind of the way that we kind of anticipate, which is probably quite likely, in all honesty. I think that again, I think the pool system over here should be a case of seedings. There should be seedings, and that's something I just mentioned. This is what really frustrates me. The fact is that your number 1 and 2 ranked side are not only on the same side of the bracket, but at this stage could be in the quarterfinal. So your number 1 versus 4 could be knocked out in the quarterfinal at this stage and not reach the semifinals. And that's, I think, the frustrating, is that there should be seedings with this. So you should make sure that New Zealand and South Africa don't appear on either side of this bracket. You want to see a New Zealand somewhere else, so we don't get a situation where New Zealand now is going to play South Africa in the quarterfinals. That is a potential World Cup final. I mean, you don't want to be in a situation right now where it's going to be New Zealand versus South Africa in the quarterfinals. Right now, France are ranked 5th, and that could potentially be your semi-final opponent, and then you could play against an Ireland or an England who are 2nd and 3rd in the finals. So obviously we don't know what the ranks are going to be like by the time we get there, but that's kind of the frustration. In that there's just a lot of us is potentially could be knocked out by the time we get to sort of semi-finals and finals. And Tyler says Springboks to lose to Italy to get an easier run to the final. Well, I think that's the frustrating part, because I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier, but you lose to Italy and we come 2nd, for example, we'll take on the Pool F Pool F winner, which is England. So it's not really much easier. But if you beat England in that quarterfinal, for example, your semi-final will be against your Pool A runner-up, which could be in Australia, and your Pool E runner-up, which is probably Japan. So I suppose, do you want a more difficult game in the quarterfinal or the semi-final? I suppose we almost sort of had the banana peel of England in that we almost sort of slipped up in the semi. But it's not ideal. But what do you think of the draw, and what do you think of this format now looking at the bracket? Because that is, for me, the problem with it. The fact that now we're going to potentially face New Zealand in the quarterfinals. And it's going to get it's going to be quite a big reaction, I think, to be honest, of this. I think that there is going to be quite a lot of reaction towards this draw, because it's not going to be straightforward at all. If we can get past the quarterfinal, then you still got France. So I think we probably us and New Zealand arguably have the hardest route to the final. And I think that's kind of the frustration with this format, is that for some people it's much easier to get to the final than it is for us. So going to some of the comments now, and I'll ask you, are you happy with the Springbok draw? 64% saying yes, 35% saying no. Ultra Sharp says, from what I calculated quickly, the quarterfinals should be this: SA versus New Zealand, Fiji versus France, Oz versus England, Argentina versus Ireland. Yeah, I mean, for example, SA versus New Zealand, I mean, that's 1 versus 2 in the world. Fiji versus France is what, like 5th versus 8th in the quarterfinals. Oz versus English is 3rd versus 7, if those are the ones. We'll have to check that. And but it's not going to be ideal. But yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff over here. We're going to do a lot of reaction stuff. We're going to do some simulations throughout the rest of the day as well. So keep an eye out for a lot of context. We're already going to have a press conference from Australia, which is Joe Schmidt, by the way. I wondered who they might get to do it, but Joe Schmidt is going to be the man in the press conference, even though he won't be the man on the ground during the tournament itself. But yeah, I suppose, as I said, it's a bit weird to get Les Kiss, who hasn't even coached a Wallaby game. So it's going to be interesting. But we're going to wrap up now, people. And I'm going to send you over to a bit of sports therapy, which I really kind of sort of need right now at the moment. So please do go and check it out. It's on the DVP channel. We're going to head across there now. And I'd love your support. Go and consider subscribing to the channel and stuff like that. Lots of different sort of content coming across there. A bit less maybe very sporty, but more kind of down the line of kind of being a bit more casual. So thank you very much for joining me. It has been a bit of a long stream. We've got lots of stuff to go through, but we'll do a bit more reaction as the day goes by and do a bit of a simulation and the likes of that. But we're going to wrap it there, people. So thank you very much for watching. Please do keep safe. Please do smash like on the video on the way out. Please do subscribe to the channel as well.